Just when it felt like Notre Dame men's basketball was finally turning a corner, one loss called everything into question. But now ACC play will tell us if that belief was real or if it was just wishful thinking. It's coming up next on Locked On Irish.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome in to Locked On Irish. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm Tyler Wojciak, and I'm your host. I graduated from Notre Dame. Now I'm a producer at Fox Sports, and I've been covering the Irish for the last 5 years. Thrilled to have you here with me on Tuesday, December 30th. Thank you for making this your first watch or listen of the day. And before we get rolling here, please take a second and make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's talk some hoops. Today, we are diving into Notre Dame men's basketball at a pivotal moment right before the start of ACC play. And to do that, I'll be joined by basketball beat writer Tom Noie from the South Bend Tribune. We're going to break down what the Irish showed during non-conference play and how one loss managed to wipe out weeks of progress. Then, we'll dive into how this team changed once Markus Burton went down and what ACC play will reveal about the direction of Micah Shrewsberry's program. Let's get into it. Well, Micah Shrewsberry said there was no Christmas in his house following Notre Dame's embarrassing loss to Purdue Fort Wayne, but we're getting a delayed Christmas gift on this show as Tom Noie from the South Bend Tribune joins us now. Tom, when you evaluate the non-conference portion of Notre Dame's schedule as a whole and try not to let the most recent loss cloud everything, how would you assess it? Because for a while there, it felt like Notre Dame was building some legitimate momentum before it all came crashing down against Purdue Fort Wayne.
We're gonna stick with the legitimate momentum because that was the last game of non-conference, and that can be explained 9 different ways if we wanted to. But when we talked earlier in preseason, and what I've written about is we didn't know what we were going to see or how we were going to see it with this Notre Dame basketball team this year. What we needed to see in the non-conference was progress, whatever that looked like, and I think we saw it. They should have won at Ohio State. They let that game get away. They lost that one by 1 in early November. They won their first 7 home games. So there was no Western Carolina, Citadel, Elon to start, which was progress. And we saw some development of guys doing different things that we didn't think we'd see. Jalen Haralson having to be the main handler. Sir Muhammad, for one brief moment, looked like he was a top 50 recruit. And Carson Tout, who's averaging 10 rebounds a game. So we've seen progress. We needed to see progress from this basketball team. Now, they should be 10-3 going to California, opening ACC play Tuesday night against Stanford. They're not. They're 9-4. That was a step back, and it was a big step back. But usually when that happened, Western Carolina, Citadel, Elon, Micah Shrewsberry is flaming mad and furious and this and that. And after the Purdue Fort Wayne loss, he was kind of just kind of okay. I'm not going to say he was okay with it, but I said, how do you get back all the goodwill that you built up through the non-conference in winning, beating Missouri, beating TCU, winning a couple of home games that maybe people weren't sure about? How do you get all that back now? Because let's face it, and they'll be the first to admit, they flushed everything, all the goodwill, all the good stuff that they did. They absolutely flushed it by losing to Purdue Fort Wayne. And Micah Shrewsberry said, look, we just have to go to California and win. Like, that's all there is to it. We've put ourselves in this position. We've got to go figure out how to get this game back and beat either Stanford and or Cal, and then get a couple of more league wins that you're not supposed to win to make up for letting this thing go, because they were just out of that in that game where they were just like, we're all going home. We had a really good non-conference. It's been a grind. We don't really have to compete that much against Purdue Fort Wayne. Oops. And then that happened. So 9-4, they should be 10-3, but I think we'll take 9-4. I don't know if a lot of people said they're going to beat Missouri or they're going to beat TCU or they almost beat Ohio State. The 2 games in Vegas, Kansas and Houston, totally outclassed. They're not there yet, but that's something that this program can continue to build toward till maybe one day they can compete with the Kansases and the Houstons of the college basketball world.
Has your perspective on that loss to Purdue Fort Wayne changed now that we've sort of had some time to digest it all? Because in the moment, it felt so bad, and it's just so frustrating because this has kind of been a trend under Micah Shrewsberry. You mentioned the losses to Western Carolina, the Citadel, Elon last year, now Purdue Fort Wayne. So, I guess what's been the common thread in how Notre Dame has played in those letdown games, and maybe why this one is a little bit different because you don't think it's a sign of things to come?
Those other three that we mentioned, they just weren't good. They were not as good as Western Carolina. I remember looking at the Western Carolina game. I think that was either Shoes' second or third career game at Notre Dame. And I was doing my Western Carolina research, and they had two all-conference senior veteran guards. And at that point, Notre Dame was starting two freshmen in Braden Shrewsberry and Markus Burton. And I looked at the Western Carolina roster, and I said, they're in big trouble with this one. They should not be playing a game like that so early against guys that have been there, and then they wind up getting bit. Against Purdue Fort Wayne, you could see it coming. Like Micah Shrewsberry talked, he apparently afterwards said that he didn't spend as much time talking about it with his guys as he did with us. But for the previous 10 days, he was saying, this is where I need my guys to really lock in, because if you're going to get bit in non-conference, you're going to get bit either the first or the last game before finals or the first game after finals, because your heads are somewhere else. And that's what happened. There was never a time in that Purdue Fort Wayne game where you thought, yeah, Notre Dame's going to make a run here and they're going to do what they need to do to get over this hump that they just didn't feel. It just didn't feel like they were able to get over it. And because it was the last game of non-conference, it's almost explainable. Like we talked about earlier, like I sat there and watched it. I wasn't like, man, they can't lose. They can't lose this game. I sat there and I'm like, they're just not going to win this game. And they seem to be all right with it. Like, we've done enough in non-conference. We've got a week-long break. We're getting out of here. We're going home for Christmas. And when we reconvene, we're going to California for 2 games to start ACC play. That's the predicament that they've put themselves in. So it's up to them to go to California and at least come back with a split.
Yeah, I guess that's the frustrating thing about it all, because it's like you want to end that non-conference slate on a high note going into the break right before ACC play, because I think a lot of people were starting to buy in, and then that loss had people questioning everything. But this is going to come out on Tuesday, the day that the ACC slate opens up for Notre Dame. So specific to the game coming up tonight, like, what are you looking to see when Notre Dame takes the floor on the road very late at night for those of you on the East Coast against Stanford that would show that loss to Purdue Fort Wayne was more of a one-off?
I want to see the sense of urgency, the togetherness, the ball movement, the shot making, the resiliency, the swagger that this team showed when they lost Markus Burton in the first 10 minutes of the game in Fort Worth earlier this month against TCU, where he went down, broken left ankle, might be done for the season, had surgery, no timetable as far as him coming back. And they just kind of looked at it and said, all right, Markus is down, but we're going to win this game. Like, we're going to figure it out. They had 27 assists. My jaw hit the floor when I looked at the final stat sheet and saw they had 27 assists against TCU. They win in overtime. They answered every TCU call, or every TCU run. And when TCU threw a punch, either Jalen Haralson, Carson Tout, Cole Serta, Notre Dame would throw 2 or 3. And I think that's the type of effort and the energy and the attitude that this Notre Dame team has to have, not only Tuesday against Stanford, Friday against Cal, and every other road gaming in the ACC, because it's time in Micah Shrewsberry's third year of, they've gone 2-8 the first year on the road, 2-8 the second year on the road. This is it in year 3, where you've got some more pieces. You've got more experience. You've got more talent. You've got more players, to where you've got to go on the road and start winning some of these games that people are like, Notre Dame road game, ACC, they're going to lose that game. So why not Tuesday night against Stanford, which really hasn't played anybody, and they don't draw well at Maples Pavilion? Why not go in there and grind out a win and start 1-0? There's absolutely no excuse for this team not to play really, really well, given the fact that the last time they were on the court, they played really, really bad.
We're going to be right back with Tom in just a moment with more on how this team has adjusted since star point guard Markus Burton went down with an injury. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about an exciting new offer from Locked On. If you haven't already, make sure you check out our brand new Everydayer Club. You'll get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Irish. Same show, same schedule, just no ads, and it works on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you use. If you listen every day, it's a really easy upgrade. Go to lockedonirish.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Gametime gives the advantage back to fans. It is the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. The app is incredibly easy to use. I went from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. I loved being able to see the view from my seat before buying, so I knew exactly what I was getting. The zone deal stood out. You pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save even more. Knowing prices include all fees up front makes the whole process stress-free. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. You mentioned it. This is the second year in a row where one of the biggest storylines of the season has to do with Markus Burton's health. Last year, he had a pretty significant knee injury. Now, he was able to come back that year, and you've already alluded to the fact that we might not see Markus Burton again in a Notre Dame uniform this season. But this year, it feels like as they've had to change pretty much everything drastically on the fly, it looks a hell of a lot better than it did last year. What were some of the biggest adjustments you noticed right away?
You've got Jalen Haralson. You've got a McDonald's
nice.
All-American, a top 20 national recruit that you can put the ball in his hands and say, like Micah Shrewsberry said that night in Fort Worth, I told Jalen Haralson, just go be the best player on the floor. You're the best guy out here. Go play that way. And they weren't able to do that last year when they lost him. Like, instead of going to Jalen Haralson, now, this is no knock on him because I'm a huge fan of Logan Imes and what he's able to do as a backup. But Logan Imes isn't equipped at that point as a sophomore to replace Markus Burton in the starting lineup out in Las Vegas. Like that, they just weren't. They were so ill-equipped to do that then. But I think they have so many pieces and so much more experience now to where they're like, all right, it sucks that Markus Burton's out. It really sucks that he may not be back this season. But you know what? We've got players. And I think that was what struck me about Jalen Haralson that night in Fort Worth was at halftime, they could see Markus Burton. He had already gotten a walking boot placed on his left foot. He was out. He was down. He was in tears. But Jalen Haralson went around to the main guys in that rotation and said, look, we still have players here too. We still have players. Let's go show it. They showed it that night. They're going to have to show it through January and probably most of February and March now that Markus Burton's hurt.
Haralson obviously came in with a ton of hype as the highest rated recruit to ever commit to Notre Dame men's basketball, at least in the internet era. And statistically, like, he's already second on the team in points, rebounds, assists, and I believe blocks as well. Going into the season, when you and I talked about him, you were a little bit more measured. I agreed with the idea that it was going to take him some time. He wasn't just going to come on the scene and dominate right away, but he has really impressed me. He has exceeded my expectations. How has he performed relative to your expectations for him in the preseason?
Still playing like a freshman. Like, he'll be really good for stretches. In the Idaho game, he was really good. Then there'll be other times where it's almost like he realizes all the stuff that he did, say, against Idaho, where they just decided, you know what, we're going to play him one-on-one. We're not going to bring a double team. We're just going to let one guy try to defend him. And Micah Shrewsberry said, every time there's one guy on you, I want you backing him down, playing booty ball the way they did with Jalen Pickett at Penn State when Micah Shrewsberry was in State College, and just back that guy down and shoot over him. And so where we sit now at Purcell Pavilion, you could hear Micah Shrewsberry just say, take him, take him, take him, not just score it. And Jalen Haralson was doing that every single time and had a really good game. the next game against Evansville, he kind of struggled. It felt like how freshmen feel or look or play after they've had a really good game, where he forced a couple. He didn't make a few shots early. Then I think he started that game 0 for 8. So it's been up and down with Jalen, but for the most part, to be able to put the ball in his hands after Markus Burton goes down and say, okay, now here, you lead us. I think he's done a really solid job and you talk to him after every game and he's still saying, it's still an adjustment. I'm still trying to figure things out. College basketball is different than high school basketball. And I'm still learning things as I go along. So there's going to be ups, and there have been. There are going to be downs, and there have been. But I think Notre Dame is in a lot better place being able to turn to a Jalen Haralson. You don't have Markus Burton, whereas last year there was really nobody that they could turn to run offense and initiate offense. And like Micah Shrewsberry said, be the best player on the floor.
Outside of Haralson, which players have benefited the most from the time period since Markus Burton went down?
It's kind of hard to say because you look at Sir Muhammad. Like I thought when Markus Burton went down, I'm like, all right, now we're finally going to see why Sir Muhammad was a top 50 recruit coming out of high school in Charlotte his senior year. He's going to handle the ball. He's going to find guys. He's going to look like a point guard. And guess what? He hasn't. That game that Jalen Haralson struggled, and Micah Shrewsberry is like, all right, I just can't go to him. I got to put him on the bench. He put Sir Muhammad in Jalen Haralson's spot, and Sir responded with one of his best games he's ever had as a college basketball player. So you want the light you thought the light was going to come on then and stay on. It hasn't for Sir Muhammad. So I thought we'd see more from Sir Muhammad. I thought we'd see more from Cole Serta. Again, Cole was really good that night at TCU and has kind of taken a step back a little bit to where he can go out and he can get himself 15 a night. There's no excuse for it. And why he hasn't, maybe it's the fact that he is sharing time with Braden Shrewsberry, who's played really well. Braden shooting 48% from three, averaging about 12 points a game. So it's still, I think what we're going to see tonight against Stanford will show what Notre Dame was able to do with that week off and maybe tweak a few things, not having Markus. Let's see if they can come at teams a little differently than just having Jalen Haralson back his guy down in the post and score over him.
I was all on board the Cole Serta bandwagon after his clutch shots against Missouri. And it wasn't just that he was making shots, it was the confidence he had when he pulled up for those. And you're right, he's splitting time with Braden Shrewsberry right now, who's had an up and down year. But to your point, like he's shooting 48% from three right now. So it seems like he's figuring it out. Are you expecting any big changes to the rotation now that Shrewsberry has had some time to sort of evaluate everything? Because, once Burton went down, they were still rattling off a couple games every few days. But now that he's had a break and now that they can sort of adjust going into ACC play, I don't know if he's going to make any big changes, but I guess it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, nothing would shock me now because he's got 10 guys. I think 10. Let's see, 2, 4. He's got 10 guys averaging double figures in minutes. The one thing I can't figure out, and I haven't been able to figure out really from the jump, is what Garrett Sundra is able to offer as a starting four-man. And it's not just me. It's many of the guys that are around covering this team every day. They look out there and they're like, it's got to get to the point where Garrett Sundra does not offer so many empty minutes. He's averaging 18 minutes a game. But he's only averaging 4 points and 3 rebounds, and he's not shooting great percentages. Like he's only shooting 34% from three. He doesn't get to the line much. He's shooting only 40% there. He's okay at 45 in field goals because a lot of that comes around the basket. But it just seems like there's just so many empty minutes, and you can't do that if you're a starting four guy for an ACC type of team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. It'll be interesting to see what role Sir Muhammad has, and then how you balance the roles of Shrewsberry and Serta as the shooters. Like Micah's played them, he started them together, Shrewsberry and Serta, and I don't know if they've gotten the production they've needed out of those spots on a consistent basis. So I think the non-conference was a time to kind of tinker and do this and do that. I would much rather see Micah Shrewsberry go with more of a set lineup and maybe even a smaller rotation if the games are spread out enough to where you're not playing 10, 11 guys just because you can play 10 or 11 guys.
Yeah, you could go back to the Mike Bray strategy and play 6, maybe 7 guys a night. It worked pretty well for him over the years, though.
Yeah, it's not necessarily sticking with a 7 or 8 man rotation. It's just staying with 7 or 8 guys that specific night that you know are going to help. There are sometimes where I think Micah falls into a trap where he's playing 10 or 11 guys just because he can play 10 or 11 guys. Like if Jalen Haralson does something wrong, he's coming out of the game right away. Brady Kaler doesn't get an offensive rebound. He's coming out of the game right away. And he does that because he has said, if it's not your night, I'm going to find somebody whose night it might be. I think there are times where he can ride those guys out longer minutes than what he's shown here in the past couple of non-conference games, to where it's been a quick hook. Like I think the game after Jalen Haralson was really good. I want to say it's the Evansville game. He got pulled less than 2 minutes into the second half. Like what can you possibly do in less than 2 minutes that can get you into a groove before you go back to the bench? So depth has been a strength for this team this season, but at times it's also been a detriment to where let some of those main guys ride out some of those main minutes more so than what they're doing.
Tom and I still have a lot more to get to, including reasons to be optimistic about this team heading into ACC play. But before we get to that, a message from FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the game tips off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited-time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. When you open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour, it always brings something new, from boosts to bonuses and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. And the timing is perfect, right before the games and right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I want to talk about the ACC schedule because it sets up pretty weird for Notre Dame. For one, it starts on the road in Palo Alto, very late at night. Tip-off is at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern time, so people are going to have to stay up late for that one. And then even later for the second game in ACC play, on the road against Cal, then they're home against Clemson, Miami, on the road against Virginia Tech, and that's where it starts to get tough because then you go on the road against North Carolina. A couple games after that, Virginia. Then you've got Louisville, and then you got Duke a few weeks after that. So how do you think the ACC schedule sets up for Notre Dame? Are they going to have a little bit of a runway to sort of figure things out before things get difficult, or do you think they have to come out and set the tone from the jump?
No, and I think the ACC actually did Notre Dame a favor in scheduling this trip when they scheduled it, because let's look at it. It's early. It opens non-conference play. So you start off the bat knowing we're going west. Notre Dame's traveling party left on Sunday, so they're going to have plenty of time to acclimate themselves to Northern California because they're going to be there all week. So they're there early. They're there when they're out of school, so they don't have to worry about getting back for class, taking a red eye out of Northern California and coming all the way home. And they get it out of the way right off the bat. So it doesn't. Some teams, Duke, I think Pittsburgh. I looked at some of the other team schedules. Notre Dame and Louisville are both out at Northern California. Louisville is going to open at Cal, and then they're going to go to Stanford. Notre Dame's going to do the opposite. They're going to open at Stanford and go to Cal. I would rather Notre Dame get this trip out now than going there in late January, early February, mid-February, a mid-February, midweek trip to where you then have to come back and maybe play Duke at home. Now, they'll play Cal and they get a week off. So they get these two games in and they can come back and split them, sweep them, drop both of them, doesn't matter. They've got a week off to kind of reassess. All right, this is what ACC play is going to be like for us. Let's tweak this. Let's change that. Let's add this. Let's subtract that. So I love the fact that this trip is where it is, regardless of what the time frame is. But then I think it's a very manageable schedule to where you're home for a couple of games, you're out for a couple of games. You're home for a couple of games, you're out. You've got tests like we talked about. You've got to go win at Blacksburg. You've got to be competitive in Chapel Hill. You've got to be better in Syracuse than what you were last year when you blew a big first half lead and lost that game. Take your chances at Louisville. Like, Louisville's a quick trip. Regardless of what happens at Louisville, you come back a couple of days later, you're playing a Florida State team that you should beat. So I think it's a very manageable ACC schedule to where it sets up to where I don't know if Notre Dame's an NCAA tournament team. We're not going there yet. But why can't this Notre Dame team win 10 ACC games, 11 ACC games? 2 years ago, it had no business winning 5 ACC games. It won 7. Last year, it won 8. We've talked a lot about progress. Progress for this program would be double-digit ACC wins this season.
One other nice thing about opening on the road against Stanford and Cal is they do it when they don't have classes. So it's not a situation where they're going to be flying back on a red eye from Berkeley and then they've got class at 8 a.m. or whatever time in the morning. So I think that part that part is favorable for Notre Dame as well. But big picture, looking beyond just Notre Dame, what's your perspective on the ACC this year?
I think it's Duke, Louisville, North Carolina at the top. Maybe Virginia and North Carolina State there. Maybe SMU. So what is that, 6 teams? Throw a wild card team in there that nobody sees coming as a 7th team. So those will be your top 7. Why can't Notre Dame get the 8th spot? Like, we're done with Notre Dame finishing 12th and playing on the first day of the ACC tournament. Micah Shrewsberry said that the first year. Turns out they wound up doing the same thing the second year. I think in the third year, there's no reason why they can't finish 8, 9, 10, or maybe challenge for 7, because they lost. I think Micah Shrewsberry, I remember him saying they lost 6 ACC games last year by 1 possession. All right, you're older, you're more experienced, you're more talented, you're more focused this year. Those 6 one-possession losses have to turn into 1-possession wins if this team continues on the progression that we expect it to.
To your point about experience, he obviously doesn't have the excuse of having a young team anymore, even if the best player on the roster right now is a true freshman, because it is his 3rd year at the program. A lot of guys who are part of his first recruiting class are now seeing significant minutes, and those guys played a lot the past 2 years as well. And when Shrewsberry arrived at Notre Dame, he had the reputation as a player development coach. It's a big reason why Jalen Haralson said he committed to Notre Dame, was to play for Micah Shrewsberry, who could develop him for the NBA. But it feels like, to me and some other people as well, that players who've been in the program for multiple years just haven't shown clear, consistent improvement yet. So where do you think he's had the most success developing players so far at Notre Dame, and where has he struggled?
I think it's more of a struggle than a success. Like, we'll let Keba Jai. Keb is a limited guy. I think for people to think, man, this kid hasn't developed. I think he's at his ceiling for development and his potential. He was never going to be a major ACC post player to where he's giving them 10 points and 12 rebounds a game. So Keba's not. I think people expect something from Keba Jai that's just not there. Whereas a Sir Muhammad, there's so much there that we just haven't seen for whatever reason. Now, I think part of it is they had Markus Burton, then they had Jalen Haralson. Micah Shrewsberry has talked on and on and on about how he recruited Sir Muhammad for his passing ability and his ability to see the floor. Well, when this season started, he was playing Sir Muhammad as a backup 4. Sir Muhammad had never played a backup 4. And you're kind of like, if he's a point guard, why is he playing a backup power forward spot? Like, he should be the point guard. He should be developing as a point guard. He hasn't developed. I think Logan Imes has taken steps. I think Braden Shrewsbury's taken steps. Markus Burton has taken steps. The thing about the tough part about Markus Burton is I think we finally started seeing his development and what Micah Shrewsberry wanted him to be just before he got hurt. It was his first double-double that he's ever had. I think he had 21 points, 24 points, 10 assists against Missouri. Had never had 10 assists in a game. Next game against TCU, first 9 minutes of the game before he broke his ankle, he had 5 assists. So he was finally figuring out how to be a point guard. And now he's out. What's going to happen if he comes back? First year, Micah Shrewsberry was here. He's not developing guys. He's just trying to keep his head above water and not go 0-20 in the league. Like, who's he going to do? Who is he going to do?
But at the end of the year, though, they turned it on. They go on that run there, and you can see the development happening before your eyes. And I think that is why so many people were disappointed in year 2, because they ended on such a high note in the first year, and you expected that development to really take off in year 2, and then it just didn't happen. Part of that obviously has to do with Burton's injury.
All the stuff that we were supposed to see in year 2, we're now starting to see in year 3. Year 2, and we've talked about it. Year two was just a forgotten year because they didn't make that progress that we expected them to make. I'm still waiting for Micah Shrewsberry, not necessarily from a development standpoint, but from an X&O standpoint. Like, when's he going to outcoach somebody? And he's said it all the time. We're not going to out-talent you. We have to out-team you. We have to see that in the next 18 games in this league for people to finally say, and I know there aren't a lot of them, for people to finally say, okay, I can see where Micah Shrewsberry's taken this program, because we for all the good that they did in the non-conference, beating TCU, beating Missouri, hanging tough at Ohio State, we still don't know where this program's headed as far as coaching, player development, recruiting, roster management, everything. Let's see these next 18 games. Let's talk in March and say, all right, I've got a clear, absolutely clear idea of what Notre Dame basketball can be, should be, and will be.
All right, so let's end on that note. If you're a Notre Dame fan and you want to care about this team, but you've been waiting for a reason, what specifically should you be watching for that would get you excited over these next few months?
Jalen Haralson's continued development, Carson Tout just being an absolute bear on the backboard, grabbing 15 rebounds a game. And I think the emergence of Brady Kaler. Keep an eye on Brady Kaler. Like, everybody talks about Jalen Haralson as the next NBA prospect to come out of Notre Dame. Jalen Haralson's got a chance to be really good, but I think the next legit NBA prospect could be Brady Kaler. So we'll see with that. And then also the steps of Cole Serta. You can't take a step back. Braden Shrewsberry, you played really well against Evansville, and then you didn't really shoot it that much or shoot it that well against Purdue Fort Wayne. You can't keep having these steps forward and these steps back. I think if they can bottle what they did, we go back to the TCU game. There's a good team in there somewhere. Like, it's up to Micah Shrewsberry and it's up to his staff to kind of sift through everything, lean on this guy, lean on this, lean on that, do more, do less of that, and really nurture this team to the point where they can go and win 10 or 11 league games. It's there. I promise you it's there. We've seen too much good stuff, regardless of what happened against Fort Wayne, to say this is the same old Notre Dame team. It's not. We just need to see it.
That might be the most optimistic way to close an episode that you and I have done in a really long time. So let's call it there. You can read all of Tom's work over at the South Bend Tribune. He is the go-to source on all things Notre Dame basketball, and we're always grateful for the time. Thanks again for doing this, Tom, and enjoy the new year.
You got it, my man.
All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first watch or listen of the day. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow along on your favorite podcast platform. Plus, you can give the video a like or rate and review the podcast for a little extra support. And before you head out, if you need a last-minute holiday gift or someone keeps asking what you want, make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club. You'll get ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through lockedonirish.supercast.com. I'm going to be right back here tomorrow with more on the offseason for Notre Dame football. I'll see you then.